Welcome back to the SCIF. I'm Matt. That's Stu. You can see that we're still having a few issues with connectivity up at the northern compound. So I am yet once again in the parking lot of the grocery store in town, underneath the big tower that's out there. But anyways, that being said, welcome back. Bear with me being in the dark here again. Nothing new for me, right, Stu?
No, nothing new for you.
We got a good show tonight. We are the Green Beret Life. We're a 501c3. If you are interested in training, primarily it's pistol, rifle, shotgun. We do all sorts of classes with pistol, rifle, and shotgun. If you're interested in training with us, please reach out and get a hold of us. You can get a hold of us at our email, which is TheGreenBeretLife@gmail.com. If you're interested in doing a class and you can get a group of people together, we can come to you. But everything goes to get veterans families, first responders families out into the outdoors. And that might be shooting events. It might be other things. But that's who we are. And thank you for joining us tonight. We're gonna continue on with what we talked about last week. And there's another, the saga. I'm going to let Stu talk about what we're going to talk about tonight, but the saga of Arlington continues, and we have a little more information now, and it makes the media look even more despicable than they already are. But that being said, Stu, what do we got on tap for tonight?
Got several different things this evening. One of them is apparently this Venezuelan gang that earlier this week, it was a whole bunch of news coming out of Aurora, Colorado, where they had apparently, quote unquote, taken over this apartment complex. And the police and the mayor and all was coming out saying, no, that's not happening. It's now forget the lady that was talking about it. She may have been a representative or something like that. That's just her imagination. She's imagining this.
Governor Jared Polis said that.
Yeah, there's literal video of these people walking around with long guns and pistols, not holstered, not slung, like at the ready, banging on doors and looks like kind of forcing their way into apartments and everything. And it looks like this has moved on over to New York. They've had reports of this same thing happening in New York, and these are the gangs that are
Chicago,
coming in.
And Chicago, Stu, Chicago.
Was it Chicago? I thought it was New York that it was happening.
It was Chicago.
My apologies. I was completely and totally incorrect. I thought it was New York for some reason. I apologize.
I pretty much grew up in Chicago, and I would normally be offended of you comparing New York or getting them confused, New York and Chicago. But I have to say today, they're both absolute shitholes, and 6 of one, half dozen the other. So
yeah, that's true. That's true. We've also got Kathy Hochul, the governor of New York. It's basically come out that one of her staffers was a Chinese spy and was engaged in nefarious activity. We'll talk about that. One thing that I found very, very interesting, I'd seen an interview with Tulsi Gabbard, who's really kind of come around a lot on a lot of things, but apparently she has been put on the terrorist watch list, the the terrorist watch list by the Biden and Harris administration. And this happened almost immediately after she came out criticizing Harris. So here is this, decorated lieutenant colonel, this person here who's somehow, that's a common name, Tulsi Gabbard. That's a common name. It's right up there with, Jack Smith and John Doe. I mean, I'm sure it was an honest mistake that, there was another Tulsi Gabbard they intended to put on the list.
Claiming it was a mistake, dude. I think they've got her on there, and they're continuing to put her on there.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. They absolutely are.
when they turned on her after she challenged, Obama and all of that way back when, they started accusing her of being a Russian spy. Hillary
Yeah.
claimed it.
Yep. Yep. That was where they started with when she didn't want to get on board with their rules and their way of playing the game. Isn't it funny how everyone that doesn't want to march in lockstep with the socialists and the Democrats are Russian spies and Russian
Exactly.
agents?
And look over there at Russia. Meanwhile, China, who the real enemy is, okay, has infiltrated every single one of these Democrats. When you look at Eric Swalwell, and I was going to say another name for him.
Yeah,
and,
who was the one that had the driver for years that was a Chinese spy?
Feinstein. That was
Feinstein, that's it.
Swalwell was caught in a honey trap having an affair.
Yep.
And this woman raised money for his congressional run. This
Yep.
Chinese spy, okay? And he's still in, and he was on the Intel committee, right?
Oh, yeah.
And now
Yeah.
you have Kathy Hochul. And it's funny. What is with these Democrats and Chinese spies?
Communist going to communist, I guess.
I guess for sure. I mean, some goofiness.
Was there anything? We're on all three, YouTube, Odysee, and Rumble right now. Was there anything that you wanted to go in depth in on YouTube for the YouTube show?
Let's talk about the Chinese spy. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, we can do that. We can absolutely do that. Yeah, the stories come out that this individual used her position to help her husband's medical equipment business profit off the pandemic response. And it alleges she directly tried to sway the state's dealings with China in exchange for lavish gifts. And actually she apparently came from the Cuomo administration. So she's been messing around in New York doing her China stuff since 2012.
Just like the Chinese spy tied with Feinstein was with her for over 20 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he had been her driver for a couple of decades.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, you look at these things and you're like, what in how? It's funny because anytime you hear someone is bad, it is, and boy, oh boy, we started out on YouTube because there's something I want to talk about on this. When you hear something is bad, they want you to look at Russia. Okay.
Yeah.
Russia doesn't play the game. Russia was not involved in the big reset, right? They're not going along with the plan that comes out of the World Economic Forum. So they're real easy target. But at the end of the day, you look at Russia. Russia's economy is the size of Texas. Now, China's economy was the size of Texas in 2000, right?
Yeah.
But China's economy now is larger than ours. China is going out of their way to subvert absolutely everything that the United States has their hand in. And you look at people like the Bidens, and that's only scratching the surface. And all of the business, and I'm using air fingers quotes, you can't see me, that was done in China, right? And China's very smart. They're in all of our universities through their Confucius project. They've now had access getting into as far as elementary schools, allegedly. And then when you look at Tim Walz was taking students over, and China was paying for it, to China, and basically teaching approved Chinese classes over there. It's just really funny. And these politicians that are sidled up to China, you look at this Tim Walz, he speaks Mandarin allegedly. You know who else speaks Mandarin? Brad Raffensperger, Stu.
Really?
Yeah, allegedly he speaks Mandarin too, and has a lot of Chinese connections. Isn't that funny? That's the secretary.
I thought you were going to say John Cena.
Yeah, well, John Cena. But China owns Hollywood. That's why even going back years, when you see movies like the Chinese government working with whoever the hero is in the movie and all of that, and very favorable characters from China, because China's so heavily invested in Hollywood. That's why
Well, and they
Johnson.
do it. It behooves Hollywood to do it as well, because if they do that, then they'll get, preferential treatment whenever they actually the movies go to China. They'll be allowed in, and that's just more money, more of a market for them to make money on the worldwide stage with their
Well,
product.
access to 1.5 billion people.
Yep.
That's why all of these businesses whore themselves out to China and everything else. Access to 1.5 billion people in the largest economy in the world, which means a lot of those people actually have money. The majority of them have no money, but there's a ton that actually have money in that country.
Well,
So,
one of the things you said that I always find, amusing. You were talking about Russia's economy is like the size of the state of Texas. But
mhm.
every time you turn around, every ill in the world, every issue that the US has, they look for that Russian boogeyman.
Mhm.
And that it's it's almost humorous in the links that they go to point to the big bad Russian, that it's Russia's fault that your gas is expensive as it is, that your eggs cost what they do. It's Russia's fault. A Russian plant, a Russian asset, a Russian spy. It's
Well, Stu,
obscene, the
what
links
you're
they go
hitting
to.
on, what you're hitting on is this: Russia has not gone on. If you see what all of Western Europe has done, they have opened their doors and flooded Western Europe with third world migrants. Okay.
Oh, you mean just like the same thing the U.S. has?
Yes, and the United States has done the same thing. Okay. And if you are one of the people that subscribe to the theory that the World Economic Forum, if you look at their platform, it tells you, right, this one world theory, there are two major impediments. Because if you look at the people that are involved, okay, the usual suspects, they'll usually say laudable things about China. Okay, China's a totalitarian state. The government rules everything, right? And that is the view that they want to run. Now, they're not necessarily, this is the big question, is, are the globalists working with China, right? Or are they working against China with trying to use their system of control? Because everybody admires, when you look at the totalitarian leaders, from Justin Trudeau up in Canada to Marxists like that we have in our country, and there's many,
Yeah.
right, including Kamala Harris, right? When you look at them, they love the way that the government is able to control the people, okay, and the you don't have the rights that we have here, the Constitution, freedom of speech, free people. In Europe, you've lost freedom of speech, but
Oh
Russia,
yeah.
Russia and the United States are the two big impediments from getting us into this one world totalitarian type government that they're trying to sell to everybody as being a utopia where you'll own nothing and be happy. The two
Speaking
countries.
about the
So,
the
so
the
well,
UK,
I want to make that point with
yeah.
Russia. Okay. Uh, Russia needs to be destroyed, as the United States needs to be destroyed. And I think if you really dig into it, that's the crux between, you know, all of the infringing upon the border of Russia with NATO over the years is designed to push them, push them, push them, push them to stepping over the line and then getting stomped. That's what they're
Yep.
trying to do. And that's why
And that's
United States to
Yep.
fall, you need Russia to fall in order to move into basically the type of authoritarian world government that China already has.
Oh yeah, and you can tell when you go back and look, whenever after World War II, when NATO was set up and everything, it was always the agreement was there would be no NATO countries on the border of
Correct.
Russia.
Correct.
And they've slowly and methodically undermined that. And take it for what you will, but what if we had, say, Mexico decided to become a satellite Chinese country, or Canada, or I mean, we would, or not that Cuba isn't,
bringing Chinese weapons and everything else.
yeah, right up to the border, and putting armaments on the border, on the Mexico border, on the Canadian border, or in Cuba, Puerto Rico. That's when that how would the look at what happened in the Cuban Missile Crisis.
Exactly.
That's of the same mindset of moving into Ukraine in NATO, is putting adversarial forces at your doorstep. And, right, wrong, or indifferent, Putin has always said he will not abide by that. He will not allow that to happen. And like you said, they've continued to push things and push things. And, like you said, poking the bear with a stick and waiting. And then when the bear attacks, the story is, bear attacks man. No, man fucked with bear and found out. That's the story.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Well, we talk about the Cuban Missile Crisis, but we seem to turn a blind eye when it is China, because China, through their Belt and Road Initiative, have pretty much taken over all of Africa. They're now taking over Latin America, and they're in Cuba, dude. We're not allowed to put oil rigs off of Florida, right? But 90 miles away in Cuba, the Chinese have their oil rigs, and they're sucking American oil from underneath Florida.
Yeah.
And if we were smart, we would tap right in front of them so they couldn't get that oil. We did. But nope.
No, can't do that.
No.
Global warming, don't you know?
Mm-hmm. So
apparently it's fine when it happens somewhere else, but not in my backyard.
Exactly.
All right, you want to bounce here off of YouTube, and we can move over to Odysee and Rumble, where we can speak a little more freely.
Yeah, YouTube sucks. Did we have any comments on YouTube?
No, we haven't.
Okay.
We haven't, but we do have, if you'll look down in the description below, there should be a link to the Rumble channel, which is where we're going to move over to, so we can speak a little more freely and creatively with everything.
We also need to discuss the shooting in Georgia today too, so we're going to talk about that side as well.
Freedom did post, and a good point, all the land the Chinese have purchased around our military bases.
It's
and
insane.
Not just military bases, just the land in general that foreign nationals are allowed, and not even that, the foreign corporations are allowed to come in and just buy up.
Don't the Chinese own over 2 million acres of American farmland?
Oh, I wouldn't doubt it. It's amazing. And you have all these other countries where if you're not a citizen, you can't own property. You can rent, you can lease, but you can't own it. But here, people are just like, here, shut up and take my land. It's just, it's disturbing. And yeah, but Freedom, you're right. All the land around the military bases, which I'm sure they're not using that for any sort of nefarious purpose, and just the property in general, that especially farmland that they're buying up.
All right, let's pop smoke and get off of YouTube.
All right, man, those chips sound good.